So this talk is on the basis of an ongoing research article I'm producing on governance. It's been quite interesting, but also extremely broader than I thought it would be. But let's get started. So governance, as everything crypto was sold as the magic pill, right? DAOs specifically. As a disruptive, novel way to create democratic communities in crypto that can self-organize through code and need no central entity. You know, there's a lot of writing in governance comparing it to mycelial networks. I don't know, all these people are very green-pilled. So, well, yes, governance in DAOs is supposed to be a positive-sum game, you know, with mycelial networks, which, if you're not aware, they're composed of multiple nodes that feed each other. There are multiple organisms that are independent, but they feed each other nutrients or whatever they need in order to all, you know, form a larger network. But in reality, and that A is on purpose, like in Spanish. In reality, DAOs are extremely complex by nature. And they go ahead and amplify many common issues in organizational structures. DAOs, by definition, have multiple different actors, and that leads to large overheads, a lack of accountability, and especially poor information flows. So, in reality, they end up being like the honey fungus, which goes on. It's a parasitic fungi that goes ahead and clenches itself into a tree and ends up rotting the root of the tree and ends up killing the whole organism. I mean, decentralization is gradual. Two crazy cats don't really need a DAO. Those are two cats at Wonderland. Two of it. However, many existing DAOs in crypto end up getting stuck in poor practices and being unable to, to increase their decentralization over time. For example, one pretty poor decision made was to go for a very monolithic and opinionated governance in earlier DAOs, which has led them now to be unable to grow on-chain. And consequentially, you end up getting a lot of DAOs that end up moving their processes both off-chain, just off-chain, or just use poor systems. A quick note on voting systems. Not all voting systems are made equal. We, in crypto, have ended up for generally simple voting systems where one token equals one vote, and also for just binary decisions, that being approve or deny. But there's a lot of, let's say, unexplored voting systems in crypto that could be built. There's a lot of writing on this. The one that's most well known is Arrow's theorem. Every voting system is flawed and prioritizes only some, optimizes only some of the for some of the voters and not all. So, but all of these decisions, you know, haven't really been exploring in crypto, and we ended up with just simple voting systems in many cases. Now, the article that we'll be producing, I did explore quite a lot of governance in more mathematical terms. Generally, this is the setup to then go on and explain that DAOs actually end up being centralized in crypto. I started out with minimum quorum, which is it's essentially the percentage, the number of tokens. It's a threshold of the number of tokens that needs to decide in favor of a proposal in order for it to go through in these DAO simple voting systems, and that's no. Okay, I was seeing if the laser pointer worked. It does not. Yeah, that can be defined as the sum of the individual votes from 1 to k, where k is the number of token holders. And, well, I defined kind of the whales over the total, or the minimum number of voters that need to decide in favor as the number of whales as in this. Cool. But the problem with these voting systems is that most token distributions end up following a power law. This is one such example. You have some exponentials, that's why it's a power law, and alpha determines like the level of inequality in a system where and this parameter is pretty high in most of the DAO tokens. And well, power laws end up looking kind of like this on the cumulative. So on both charts, these are two instances of actual DAOs in crypto, and the x-axis is the largest number of token holders, and the y-axis being the percentage that these holders have over the total number of tokens. And most thresholds are set up at either 10% or 20%. And, well, in this one, it's just one guy that decides. So it's not really a DAO, is it? And I'm not going to name them. But there's some food item. Yeah, and this one is just 2. So actually, DAOs end up being just oligopolies where just a handful of people decide and the rest just hold the token and don't really have a say. Yeah. Few votes actually matter in DAOs. And that's sad. Cool. Now, it's not just like it doesn't just have to do with, 1 or 2 people holding 10 or 20% of the votes and supply. It also has to do with the cost of information. Many teams that build DAOs don't really pass through the information to the community so that they can make, good decisions. It's not really a DAO if I have some contracts on chain, but I only know Wagwan. And added to this, the cost of voting is extremely high for many of these DAOs. So I wrote here a regressive voting system. Now the thing is, if you only have $20 worth of governance tokens and it costs $5 to vote, why would you? And so in the end, only whales end up really voting or engaging with the community. Now, that's called rational ignorance, and really it's what you end up seeing in many of these systems. It makes more sense to just not do anything rather than to become involved. and you end up getting a very small number of agents actually, interacting in these governance systems. And so we're in a DAO, you want to have engagement by the whole of the community in order to then understand what's happening and be able to grow. So limiting this to just a core number of very opinionated people can have severe consequences with its growth. Now we do have delegation, which where token voters can delegate their vote to a delegate, and that person can then make decisions and represent their delegatees. However, tooling isn't really quite there to understand what delegates are doing. The number of delegates is really small, and not only that, but many delegates end up working over multiple different projects, and there isn't really a tool to kind of understand whether there are any conflicts of interest in their delegation practices, in order to see their whole voting history in an easy way. And this is something that really needs to be built. And this is just a note I added towards the end. I spoke with multiple larger projects, and they kind of they said that the DAOs are not only a way to kind of get the vote and quorum for the people, but to offload much of the legal troubles in whatever they're doing. I should have said that in a different way, but the problem really is that if you have centralization in the DAO governance token, in the same way that shares in a company need to be disclosed if they are held by a single entity with more than 10% of the vote in many countries. In crypto, it's a matter of time until until DAOs are recognized in a more holistic way in legal systems. And really, you end up just creating a security if a single person holds much of the vote. There isn't really a DAO there at all. It's just some useless contracts that cost money on chain. Cool. So yeah, some takeaways. So for once, I would say that, let's say, existing contracts that are used by DAOs really aren't enough to allow for gradual decentralization. The Open Zeppelin governor, for example, kind of sucks, and even Open Zeppelin has agreed to this, trying to make it better, and that's what most DAOs are using. And the earlier versions of Aragon are also extremely monolithic, and many DAOs are struggling to then adapt and grow that system out further. It's extremely opinionated. So really, we need some sort of we need a better governance framework on chain that allows for less opinionated code to be written and maintained and upgraded, such that the core can also be upgraded without everything breaking. Cool. Yeah. So I don't know if there's any questions. There will be. There's definitely more to do, and I will have an article soon, TM.
Okay, first question here.
Hi, I'm an Open Zeppelin. When you say the Open Zeppelin governor sucks, I'm very curious to hear your specific feedback and who at Open Zeppelin already agreed with that, because I need to have a word with them.
So,
and I agree we should be improving it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it sucks.
What I mean to say, it is quite limited in it's quite simple, and like it makes sense for DAOs to begin with. But if you want to build, over, for example, multiple in a cross-chain solution, the Open Zeppelin governance really isn't enough. You guys do have you have started a group in order to then like feedback. I'll give it 1 to 1. It's so well, in the stuff I've worked with the Open Zeppelin governor, the data was like it essentially just collects the number of the voting weight over time upon every transaction, and there's some extensions to do snapshotting as well, but there isn't, like, for example, as I said, like interfaces to then to have governance be natively cross-chain, so that you can have an L2 voting system that just relay the voting decisions of the token holders back to L1, so that the decision can then be followed through. I think that's one.
So that's a good point, and it's something that we've worked with teams to like kind of have custom solutions to. It's something we've considered adding to the library, but something we're trying to get into the future roadmap. So that's good to hear for something that's more natively supported.
Okay, thank you. We got another question there.
Hola.
Testing. Okay, this works. Hi, Rex. Thanks for the prez. My main takeaway from this was governance sucks because it's not decentralized enough, right? I mean, that was my main takeaway from this, because when I think of like successful DAOs, I think of ENS, optimism. I mean, I'm thinking of it as like from a profitable stand of view, right? Like ENS is profitable, they're making more money than they're spending, right? And so if, in your eyes, or from what you've said, and I agree with, by the way, is DAOs are like oligopolies, right? So, only a handful of people make decisions. So if that's a problem, then I guess that means it's a problem on the decentralized point of view, right? Rather than like the profitability or the success of that DAO. Is that correct? And if you do agree with that statement, what kind of like, would you mind expanding on like those kind of solutions, like around that? That was a lot of information.
Yes. So, I mean, profitability is just one metric of whether a DAO is successful or not. I mean, we do want to make money, but it's more that it's also a definition question, in that like what is a DAO isn't really black and white. There's many of the ones you mentioned, they have some aspects of decentralization, but they end up working like corporations without saying they're corps.
Okay, we have room for 2 questions more.
Test. Okay, so I got a question, because you just said that they end up working as like corporations, but not saying that they are corps. Why is it bad? Like, why necessarily is it bad? What is bad with corporations?
It's not bad, but it's not a DAO. So it's kind of it's a false promise then, more than anything else. Why? Well, it's called a decentralized autonomous organization. If it fails on decentralization or autonomy, it's not a DAO. I mean, it is a spectrum.
Yeah, so like, aren't public corporations decentralized? They like have thousands of shareholders usually, and they are kind of like a DAO. Simply, they operate differently. But in terms of decentralization, I would say that I know many corporations that are more decentralized than many DAOs.
That's something I'd love to look into and speak to you more about. I don't have a direct answer right now.
I mean, you have to look at the decision making, right? Like, in the end, in most of the corporations, you have the system where the liability falls back to directors, so not the shareholders even. So that's why, from this perspective, it's quite centralized. And in DAO, you don't have directors, right? Like, as an idea. So it's not, the DAO is decentralized, right?
Yeah, I think we can continue this discussion later, like not taking time here.
On the lunch break, guys. We have a question here.
Hi. So you are saying that if, like, initially it's not a good idea to launch a DAO, then according to you, like, when is the right time to launch a DAO? Like, if I'm a protocol, initially I don't have much users, or maybe it will make more centralized. But then, what is the right time, or what are the metrics which can lead me to decide what is the right time to launch a DAO?
I would say my argument is not on when is like the right time to launch a DAO, but that there needs to be a process by which DAOs can be gradually decentralized and do not stay stuck in somewhere along the way. It's more so that with DAOs much ends up happening as the DAO expands, for example, as many DAOs expand, for example, they end up creating just large core groups that are just governed by a multisig, and they enact their decisions over the forums off chain, and well, all of this process I then cannot be followed through easily, and that information flow rather than being off chain ends up only being held by a select number of people.
So you're saying, like, selecting some people who are public figures?
No, it's that DAOs, like, when is the right time to launch a token is a tough question, and it depends on project by project. With regards to for the decentralization, it really should be done in a fairer way than selling all the tokens to the select VCs, because then you can end up having a more holistic voting corpus that can help you develop the project further. Because otherwise the power of governance isn't really wielded.
But you know what? ICOs are anyways dead. So without VCs, protocol cannot scale, right?
Of course. It's not a binary of sell everything to VCs or sell nothing. There's levers.
So can we say, like, semi-DAOs can be a solution where initial level of centralization, at least we gave a start. We once we have launched a semi-DAO, then gradually we keep decentralizing with some key parameters.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The last one.
Hey Rex, over here. You mentioned conflicts with delegates. I'll be interested to hear more of your insights on that. Like, what sort of conflicts are you seeing with delegates? Maybe naming some. But then also, what solutions do you see? Like, how do we resolve these conflicts with delegates? Conflicts of interest.
Conflicts of interest are plenty, not even in DAOs, but even in more centralized systems. I mean, in the UK government, many of the MPs don't really need to say that whatever their, or they do need to say, but they don't, on whatever their secondary jobs are, which, you know, ends up deciding what kind of laws they try to pass through Parliament. But that's going on a tangent. Some conflicts of interest I see, for example, are some delegates that have power in pretty much every L2. Now there is, of course, a positive sum game with L2s where, you know, interoperability, for example, is great. So to have a delegate that works over all of them is useful. However, there's also a lot of eating into each other's market because the number of users in crypto is still small, and some delegates either don't take this into account or aren't forward with their decisions. I know there's been a number of conflicts. I just don't want to name. I don't know if I'm to name people. There was some conflicts in Retro PGF where the delegates indeed voted their own projects in to get more funds, or voted a number of different projects in to get more funds. I ended up gaming the whole system, and those conflicts of interest weren't raised initially.
Okay, thank you very much. A big round of applause for Rex. Thank you, Rex. And thank you, Wonderland, for sponsoring this event. And if you are looking for a job, the Wonderland team is hiring, so reach out to them and connect. Thank you, Rex.